Hello. Today, I'm going to do a short video, not as long as the two that I've done so far, about the Holy Trinity. Basically, because most people don't, even religious people, don't seem to have the faintest clue what the Trinity is all about. And atheist viewers, don't panic. This is in no way designed to be a case for a religion or even God. It is simply an analysis of what the Trinity represents and why it's used. And furthermore, as a little caveat to that, I'm going to go a little bit into sort of the history of the Trinity, because too many people just think that it's a Christian, especially Christians, who just think, well, no, look, we have the Trinity, ooh, look, ooh, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, But it goes back thousands and thousands of years. Like, pretty much every major religion has had its own Trinity, and they all follow the same basic structure, and there's a very good reason for that. So, let's plough in, shall we? Let's dive in. Plough ahead. Combined my phrases there. Okay, we'll start at the beginning then. How many ways are there for one human being to come to know another human being? Well, there are three. When I state them, you'll probably be like, yeah, but that's obvious. There are thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. Now, obviously, people can't read our thoughts per se, and so it's not like I'm saying that these things automatically will give away or allow you to connect with someone. But there are three aspects of you as a human that are involved with making connections with other humans. And what it comes down to is that the thoughts are a neutral force. You don't think about them as being masculine or feminine. Now, when I say masculine or feminine, I don't mean in the sense that some languages are, like, some like items of clothing might be masculine or feminine in like French or German. English doesn't have that. And I don't mean male and female in the sense of the male sex and the female sex. Now, pardon me. I have covered this in one of my earlier videos, and possibly in both of them. The notion of brain balance and about the masculine and the feminine side of the brain. And that, that's what the Chinese yin yang's all about. Every masculine's got a bit of feminine, every feminine's got a bit of masculine in it, and hence that's how the whole thing works. Now, as I say, your thoughts are neither masculine nor feminine. Now, just to explain the masculine feminine side a bit more, the reason something is masculine or feminine, or can be, in the instances that it can be, the things that can be defined as masculine as opposed to feminine, or feminine as opposed to masculine, are usually there because of obvious interpretations. Like, on a very basic sort of, let's look at it from the crudest level possible. The genitalia of the male extrudes from the body. The genitalia of the female goes into the body. So, and that's why the basic symbols in ancient times for the masculine and the feminine, or were the cup and the blade. Now, essentially, I say the cup and the blade, but they were just two triangles. So the cup was the triangle, going like that, and the blade was the triangle going like that. And that's why the Star of David is the Star of David, because the two triangles together gives you the six-pointed star, and it's the blending of the masculine and the feminine, the balance between the two. And so, yeah, so if something goes forward as opposed to being contained, then it would be deemed the masculine action. And if something is contained as opposed to having forward motion, then it would be considered a feminine action or feminine state. But like I say, that doesn't in any way pertain to saying that therefore that is something the man should do, or therefore that is something a woman should do or shouldn't do. It's just not that crude and not that basic. And if you still at this point don't really follow what I mean, I suggest you do a bit of research on the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine. And so yes, so as I said for the third or fourth time now, thought is neutral. People might be able to kind of, guess what you're thinking, or even kind of know what you're thinking if they know you well enough. But that is based on sort of your actions. It's based on your body language that they are able to kind of interpret. And speech, it comes under actions, but it's also the crossover point between thought and emotions. So anyway, thoughts are neutral. They're contained. They don't sort of extend beyond your body in any way that well, at least not to any noticeable degree for most people in most times. And then the second is your emotion, thoughts and emotions. So emotions are feminine. They're feminine because they are contained within you, and people might be able to sort of sense your emotions, but they can't feel your emotions. Only you feel your emotions. Therefore, as I say, that makes that the feminine aspect of consciousness. Then you've got your actions. Your actions extend beyond your body, extend beyond yourself, and therefore they're masculine. And the reason that this all is I'm saying this, and the reason I'm talking about it like this, is because that is what the Trinity is. The Trinity of any religion, and we'll quickly run down some of these here, because as I was saying, people think they say the Trinity, they think Christianity, but unfortunately that's not the case, because almost every major religion has had its own Trinity. You've got the two Trinities of the Babylonians, which was Nimrod is the Holy Father, and therefore the neutral emotions. The neutral thought. And then Semiramis is the sacred feminine, or the spirit. And then together they have the male child Tammuz. And then you've got Shamash and Ishtar have Sin for the second Babylonian one. The Backland in Israel, which I think is sort of way back when, we had Baal as the father, Ashereth as the sacred mother, and then Tammuz again is a name that comes up again. But then the Jews did spend some time in Samaria or Babylon, so that's possibly why that's the same. And then in ancient Greece we've got Zeus and Athena have Apollo. In India we have Brahma and Shiva have Vishnu. In ancient Rome we have Jupiter and Venus have Mars. And then the classic traditional Christian one, the Father Jehovah, and the Holy Spirit or the Dove have the Son Jesus. And so yes, the reason why all of these religions have got this Trinity, and the Trinity follows exactly the same basic structure, is because of that. It's because that is how the mind works. That's how the process, it's on a very basic level, it's like computer language. You've got the thoughts, which are input, emotions, which are the compute stage, and then actions, which are output. It's in ancient education, ancient Greek, ancient Roman education, it was called the Trinity, and it was not knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. Knowledge, input the information, acquire the information. Understanding, process the information, figure out what that information is telling you, test what you have figured out to make sure you have figured it out properly, and then you can be sure of you understanding that and being able to explain it. And then lastly, wisdom. Well, wisdom isn't just a state of mind. This is something else I have trouble with people. People will say, like, refer to someone else as wise, and I'll be like, well, they're not really wise. You know, just because they're able to say things that are intelligent or that are true doesn't make them wise. Wise is applied knowledge of right action. You know, like, an alcoholic who stopped drinking could be considered wise when they're telling you about the pitfalls of drinking a bit too much, a bit too often, and how it can go from being fun to being a problem, and then all of a sudden you've got to stop drinking altogether because you've got yourself addicted to it, and you can't really ever start again because you'll just go straight back to the addictive nature. That could be considered wise because that's applied knowledge of right action. The alcoholic who's still an alcoholic giving you the same speech isn't wise because they haven't stopped drinking. They're still killing themselves. They might be informative, they might be truthful, they might be clever, or they might have a valid point, or they might make that valid point in a very eloquent way, and furthermore, the sight of them may add to your stimulation to curb your drinking and not drink too much. Seeing them, yellow from jaundice and teeth missing and too skinny because alcoholics tend not to eat very well, and all the other stuff that goes with just general long-term drug abuse of any kind, which is another thing that irritates the crap out of me when people start talking about, oh, I don't do drugs, they say with their fucking pint of lager in their hand. Dickhead. Yes, you do. You're doing it right now. Oh, I don't do illegal drugs. Well, why the fuck didn't you say that? Because in your head, you've literally separated them off, and anything the government says is okay must be okay, and it must be fine on every level, and everything the government says is bad must be wrong, which is just the greatest crock of shit ever. So your thoughts, your emotions, and actions working together is what produce right action. And if any one of those is not doing what it should be doing, like if you're overly emotional but you don't temper it with thought, with the kind of contemplation of things and try and understand things as well as you can, then you won't take the right action. And if you don't think about things enough, but say you have the correct emotional responses to the right situations, and you're kind of empathetic and so on, and but if you don't think enough about what's going on around you and why it's going on and try and find out that information, then once again you won't take right action. Gandhi said, happiness is when what we think, what we say, and what we do are exactly the same. Meaning that the thoughts you think and the words you say and the actions you take all line up. Saying and doing one thing but thinking another because you're like, oh god, I don't know. Oh yes, yeah, I'm your friend. Whatever the case may be, if you're not being honest about what you think to someone for a prolonged period of time, and it's not just to save their feelings about something, that's slightly different. You know what I mean? If someone looks fucking ridiculous but they really like the clothes they're wearing and it just nothing, and that if you tell them they might get bummed out about the fact that you've told them, but they're not going to stop wearing it because they like it, then what's the fucking point in telling them? They want to look like an idiot, let them look like an idiot, tell them they look great. But it's like I always say, there's some lies that are okay. Well, that's not I always say. I do always say this, but it's a Billy Connolly joke that I really love. He says the Irish lie, but they tell good lies, and this is the kind of lie that's acceptable. It's like there's a guy walking, backpacking across Ireland, and he's going along the side of a farmer's field, and he says, "Excuse me," he's to the farmer and his wife, "Excuse me, I'm walking to Dublin. Could you tell me how far it is?" And the farmer goes, "Oh, it's 10 miles." And the wife nudges him and goes, "What are you telling him that for? He's walking. Tell him it's 5. There's a certain element of truth to that. Like if you're gonna save someone's feelings, or if it's not really gonna do them any good to know the truth in a kind of soft way, it's not gonna do them any harm, but it's not gonna do them much good, kind of thing. So it's a case of perception or whatever. Yeah, then there are occasions when that's okay to do that. But other than that, I can't remember whether it was the Bible or the Quran, but one of the religious books has got a really good quote which says, what was it again? It goes, Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, there's yeah. So you've got thoughts, emotions, actions, and if you don't have balance between them, then you will fail to make the right decision. You will fail to be wise. You will fail to apply correct knowledge of the right action. This is the other thing I have a real big problem with Christians with, because even if you are a religious person, even if you do believe in God, if you have the notion that the only thing you have to do to get on the good side of the creator of the universe is to believe in him or his son, then you are a fucking moron. I'm sorry to be the one to piss on your picnic, but I really am. I really am, because it doesn't matter whether you look at this from a Christian or a believer perspective, or whether you look at it from an atheist disbeliever perspective. The only thing that will save anybody is action. Action needs to be taken for any change to arrive in this world. And action cannot be taken until the way that most people think changes. I mean, like that's why the creative force, thought, is a passive thought. Is a passive state. Because nothing can be created in the universe unless it is first thought of. You know, the computer you're watching me on, all the little microchips that made that computer, they all were thought of in someone's brain before they ever came into being. So yeah, and I mean, anyone who's seen my previous videos will have seen I've covered the Hermetic principle, and the first point of the Hermetic principle is mentalism. Everything is mental, all is mind, the universe is a mental state, consciousness is the presiding force, it is the dominant force in this universe. And I love, well, I say I love, actually I find it really annoying sometimes, but you know, in my own little way, I love talking with people on the internet, or exchanging comments with people on YouTube videos where they are completely either in denial if they have heard about it, or completely in ignorance if they haven't, about the fact that there is buttloads and buttloads of evidence to suggest that consciousness can have an effect on matter, that thoughts can affect matter. You know, from the very, very obvious, there's the very obvious one that, like, experiments show different results when they're observed. Like, if you do the spot test, or the dot test, I think it's called, in particle physics, if you don't know what that is, basically, they get a machine that fires, like, protons or photons, I think it is, photons, particles, at this wall. And then in between the wall, they've got, like, a sheet with two slits in the sheet. Now, you would think that some of the particles would hit the wall and wouldn't go through, and other particles would go through, and therefore you'd have two dots, two sets of lines behind the holes, because they're slit holes, they're not little round holes, but like long slit holes. You'd have two sets of dot marks. Well, you don't, you get like 3 or 5. It's as if the thing was like travelling through the wall, or was going in at multiple different angles, and it's just very confusing. But then when they put a camera in there and observe the process, you get them lined up as you would expect. Right, but there are still, I literally read something yesterday where basically, after a lot of blather, this guy on his blog, who claimed, ask a mathematician and a physicist it was called, you know, therefore, you know, he must be the bearer of truth because he is one. There isn't any actually dissent or disagreement within those fields, no, you know. That's the other thing people forget. Just because you found a scientist to tell you one thing doesn't mean that it's automatically true, you know. You know, I mean, it might be. If he's talking about his results, then the chances are that it is, you know. Because this is the other thing people forget. They always point out, oh, well, it must be fake, or it must be faulty results in that got those results, kind of thing. But then they don't seem to be aware that a lot of scientists that wanted to challenge Rupert Sheldrake by testing his experiments and doing them themselves were quite quickly converted, because they did it in a really, really strict way. Thought, I'm gonna make any mistakes. I'm gonna prove this is all rubbish. And then they found that the evidence was there. So yeah, but I was talking to someone the other day, and they were just, you know, like, tell me one thing one piece of evidence he's produced, and I was like, no, I'm not going to, because it's so easy for you to find the volumes and volumes of pieces of information, of tests that he's done and studies he's done and the results of them, and the peer group testing, or peer reviewed work he's done. And so I think I'm going to wrap it up there. It's a nice little shorter video than the last couple I've made. But yes, that's basically why the Trinity appears in most religions. That's a little bit of background about, like I say, for example, the Egyptian equivalent. So you've got Osiris is Jehovah, Isis is the Holy Spirit or the dove, and then Horus is Jesus. And that is exactly the same. It's the male, a male force, a neutral force, combined with the sacred feminine force to create a male child, which is, action. Anyway, it's been fun. Come back soon.